special meeting of the Cedar Springs City Council to order at 6:04 p.m. Thursday, March 21. Please rise and recite the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Mrs. Conley.
Yes.
Mr. Gross is absent.
Mr. Marvel.
Here. Mrs. Powell.
Here.
Mrs. Race.
Here.
And Miss Atchison is here. I would entertain a motion to excuse the absent members, please.
I will make that motion, Madam Mayor.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Moving on to public comment. The council welcomes and encourages the public to speak during the public comment and public hearing portions of the agenda. However, council policy is to hear the public comment, not to act on the public comment at this time. Concerns brought before the council during the public comment portion of the agenda will be referred to the city manager for action. If after communicating with the city manager, no resolution is reached, the concern will be elevated to the mayor and then eventually to the council for actions. Those citizens wishing to speak on agenda and non-agenda items will be allowed a maximum of 4 minutes each to address their concerns. This is the only time during the council meeting that citizens are allowed to address the council. Please state your name and address for the record if you would like a response. Are there any members of the public that would like to make a public comment? We do not have any here. Are there any on Zoom? Okay, hearing no public comments, seeing nobody here to do any, we'll move on to the adoption of the agenda. Do we have any additions or corrections needed to the agenda? I would entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Mrs. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Marvel?
Yes.
Mrs. Powell?
Yes. Yes.
And Miss Atchison votes yes.
Aye.
All right, we don't have any public hearings, action items, but we do have a budget workshop. And that's why we're here. Would you like to open that up?
We'll start and then I will turn the floor over halfway through to my finance director to finish, so. Gosh, we're here again. I feel like we just did this not too long ago, but preparing for the 24-25 fiscal year budget. Many hours have went into preparing this document, so. Just kind of flipping through the pages here. Elected officials, management listed, organizational chart. The first graph here, we got millage rates for the city of Cedar Springs residents and businesses. Trend of how millage rates have continued. Just like to note that the fire station bond millage, it looks like it's going up, but if you can look back a year, 2.5772 down to 1.8626. We went that low because we did have some money in reserve that we had to use towards a bond payment. We can't have excess money from this millage just sitting in a kitty. We have to use it to pay the bond. So we used that. So we went, did the calculation again this year. We're up to 1.999. Ooh, just below that 2 mills. That was good. Everything else, the city's millage rate is staying the same at 15.0642. The refuse millage staying at 0.5 and the library millage staying at 1.2225. So pretty stable total overall. Those won't be finalized until June when we get the requests from all the agencies. It says proposed at the top. So just taking that millage rate, proposed millage rate times current taxable value. So after March board review, we have, our official taxable value for the city. Taxes went up again this year by 5%, second year in a row, 5% increase in taxable value. That's state law.
That's state law, just to be clear, if anybody's,
Rate of inflation or 5%, whichever is less. So 5%, because rate of inflation is more than 5%, so. Moving on to general fund net of revenue and expenses. We just like to point out, so the fiscal year that we just completed not too long ago, 22-23 fiscal year, we were able to put 176,000 back into general fund balance. So that's always a good thing. And then the next graph shows cumulative, unrestricted general fund balance at 1.5 million.
we took some out for the bridge, right?
That's all done. Our general fund balance is higher than 1.5, but it's restricted for fire trucks and turnout gear and park improvements, and this is unrestricted, available to be used. The next chart, 24-25 all fund summary, that's just kind of a short picture of total revenue, total expense, and then if we're proposing to take money from fund balance or put money into fund balance. We'll go into more detail per fund in the upcoming pages. But just a good graph to kind of quickly look at if you're just looking at totals. Next page, 24-25 CIP summary. This is just a document that really helped me as the finance director try to keep track of those big ticket items per fund. If I knew, the fiscal year was halfway through and we hadn't even started on ordering some of this stuff, I would let the department head know, hey, fiscal year's half over, you're purchasing a, XYZ tool. We need to get on that so it hits this fiscal year. So good, not required, but a good document that I had created.
Thank you.
Excuse me,
Let's, let the record show that Jerry Gross showed up at 6:12. Jerry Gross is here though. That's what's important. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
I thought showed up. Sounded good.
Working with the public.
Entrance.
Yeah.
Okay, so we start off with the general fund. We try to highlight like the large projects that are going to happen in this fiscal year. And for this next fiscal year, it's going to be the Heart of Cedar Springs project, the trust fund grant. Probably spring of 2025, this will begin. We haven't actually secured the funds yet through the legislature, but I'm told it's standard procedure and it'll happen. So, but I don't anticipate, even if we secure the funds shortly, to have anything begin this fall before snow flies. So we'll plan on spring of 2025. Whoops. So that brings us to general fund revenue as a whole. $0.9 million. Pretty close to just a little increase from last year. 2.6 was last year. The two largest sources of revenue to the general fund are taxes, which we plan to bring in 1.686 million in tax revenue. And state shared revenue is the second largest source of revenue to the general fund, and that budget is 453,000.
Again, 453,000 in shared revenue.
That's the second largest source of revenue to the general fund.
Is that up from?
Tiny bit. So current year, we're planning on 446,000.
Okay.
We'll take it.
That's right. I'm trying to do historic math in my brain from before the,
So that means, for people that don't understand, that's money given to us from the state?
There's two, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, right, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mhm.
because they collect it.
Yep.
And they have part of it back.
Got it, okay.
Keep a good chunk of it.
So that's like us paying our taxes and then that's just the refund back. We'll say it, kind of like that, right? That's kinda, you know what I mean?
It's going in my mind. Yeah.
Total revenue, 2.962 million. Each department, these are all general funds, so these are all the expenses that this 2.9 million are gonna cover. We start out with city council. Pretty flat budget there, increase the wage a little bit. Attend some conferences, MML, whatever, training. It's in the budget.
We should do some training.
The next department is city manager. This budget looks a little different from the current year. Current year has 55,000 in it. That was for the previous manager wanted to hire an assistant to the manager. I am internally working on possible staff changes, but absolutely nothing. It's gonna be a while down the road before I even come up with proposed changes. We are growing so fast. A lot of our plates are overflowing, so we need to figure out internally how to handle that and how to handle the growth, and so.
That's definitely, I believe that is something to turn internally is a good idea, because you will know what you need. And then then we would be more than willing to probably help you out.
To the clerks of the area. From the clerk, it's Nelson this morning, so where all it's gotten to already, I don't know, something about a clerk's meeting, so.
We'll just say, I think you all are doing an amazing job, and the fact that we were able to hire you internally has made this transit, having done, what, 4 other transitions of, how many did we do?
Many.
From other city managers, there was always this really huge learning curve. I'm not saying you didn't have some learning curve, but not like I don't know where the buildings are in town. And I think training people internally is huge for that. And I appreciate that that is your approach.
Succession planning too. I mean, we're all not gonna be here forever, and how does the, city look in 5 years even? It's gonna be different. So we need to plan for that. So, but anyway, really just the individual departments like this is really just wages, benefits, and some training. So that's what it is. General administration, this is kind of an odd department. This is where the treasurer and the deputy treasurer, so why isn't it called treasurer's department? But anyway, general administration, treasurer, deputy treasurer category. So Emily being new, we did budget for her to start the MMTA. She'll actually be attending that this current fiscal year. So this budget will be year 2, hopefully next year. So, yeah. Other than that, wages and benefits, so. Major. Next, we have city clerk and deputy. So this one looks a little different, kind of hard to budget for all the changes in their world right now. But we do the best we can. Next month, April will be with us a year now, full-time. She's been with us a couple years part-time, but she's coming up on her 1-year anniversary as a full-time employee. So definitely higher wages and full-time benefits for her are in here. The necessary duties that fall on the clerk's desk and deputy clerk. Next, we have accounting, auditing. We are required to have an annual audit, and we do that every year. This is not the whole cost of the audit. We try to break it down a little bit per fund. The overall total audit, still fairly cheap in my opinion, is about $13,000. So that's pretty reasonable for a $10,000 budget.
Audits, the portion of the library is completely accessible to the people at the library.
A copy of our audit. It's on our website.
Seemed to be some confusion about that for meetings that Council Powell and I attended.
Next, we have the IT department. We've had an IT contract for support, service and support from, it was originally the company that paired very well with our software company. They recently, in this last year, have sold to a new company. It's called VC3. The price has gone up and the service has gone down. So that's at the top of my list to do an RFP and find a better IT contractor. Other than that, the two new computers, we're constantly buying new computers. Computers have about a 5-year cycle. So we try to do a couple a year, so we're not buying 20 computers at once. So the computer at the front counter where all the receipts come in from the public there, we need to replace that one. And then the computer in the corner over here for the council meetings, it is very old and not wanting to do updates anymore. And so it's at the top of the list to be replaced. Next, we have board review. These are required meetings from the assessors department. We have March board review that just occurred a couple weeks ago. We have a short July board review and a short December board review, and those board members are paid for their time while they're at board review and to go to training.
And should be.
Required budget.
Back up, but are we paying enough money to get election workers now that we need so many more? Are we, is what we're paying like acceptable? Or do we need to like kick it up a buck or two an hour?
Currently, we just increased that, so we're sitting pretty well now. That is something that we want to readdress as, you know,
I can see that could be complicating if, I mean, just.
Especially when you're hiring 30 people.
Right. 30 people. Right.
Yeah.
Or however many you have to get to cover 9 days. And if there's people who are like, well, I'm gonna take time off from my regular job to come do this, I gotta at least not, you know, lose money. Mm-hmm. So just, I mean, just as a, yeah. Okay.
Our city assessor, we have a contract assessor with Grand Rapids Township. He has access to our database 5 days a week. He's actually here in the office, usually Wednesday afternoons, unless he's at training, he'll come a different day. That works out very well. Citizens know, sometimes they stop by Wednesday afternoons looking for him or make an appointment. He is definitely accessible and does a very good job. So hoping to keep him around for a long time. Next, we have elections. Just talked about elections. So here, I mean, like you mentioned, 9 days early voting. I think the current budget, we kind of budgeted maximum 9 days for every possible election. That didn't necessarily turn out for every election. We didn't have to have an election every time there could have been an election maybe. So 24, 25, to the best of our ability, we're hoping to keep the costs within this budget, but like you said, we have to pay the people to show up. So, I mean, we don't have a choice.
Our absolute largest, most critical responsibilities as a municipality is making sure people can vote like, I mean, it's right up there with the fire department and making sure the water is safe and making sure the ambulance shows up is, people gotta be able to vote. And our clerk is amazing at that, but she cannot be 30 people for 9 days. So,
It would be weird if there were 30 of you.
Next, we have city buildings and grounds. So this is a little bit higher than the current year. And that is because we want to pave, the parking lot at 74 North Second Street. The total bill on that, estimated bill, we have to bid it out, of course, is 81,000. City's general fund is pitching in 61,000 and the DDA is pitching in 20,000. So very thankful for that. But that is the big ticket item this year for city buildings and grounds.
it's expensive.
Ridiculous.
I mean,
What is it though? Right?
I mean, it's,
Kind of needed and it's.
yeah, and it's, I mean, I don't want to go stand out there in the hot sun and and
Oh.
so I have a question. Yeah.
So, now the library grounds maintenance and whatever, well, they'll get that in their budget now,
Correct.
right? Okay,
Yeah.
that's why we don't have it. Okay.
Next, we have city attorney, and I literally don't have a crystal ball to determine this number. So again, we did the best we could. We did amend this budget not too long ago, but once we create this spreadsheet, these numbers are as of December 31st, 23. That is what we had spent as of 12/31, but we've amended the budget, increased our current budget. Hoping we can live within that 85,000 in the new fiscal year. Allocated employee benefits. This is a department that literally covers part of Public Works employees' uniforms. This department, some goes to the water fund, sewer fund. It's spread out wherever they all work. And then a portion of the workers' comp piece for our Public Works employees, $5,000 total. Required department. Thank you, State of Michigan Chart of Accounts, required requirements.
Appropriate.
Police Department, the county did it. So we contract with Kent County for police services and they changed their fiscal year to a calendar year. So it looks like quite a jump, but we're gonna hit 2 of their raises just based on timing. So, correct, so.
Still. I mean, it's still within the. Yeah, I was gonna say, it's still less than what we were paying when we had it in-house. I mean, that was a little over $1 million, if I remember correctly.
Buy a lot of guns,
I wanna say,
cars.
I wanna say it was like 1.1 million. And honestly, less people providing service, I would advocate.
Not sure, but it was a great change.
That whole, like, every time there's a specific issue, like the gun sales, the gun being stolen at and like they brought in their specific team and then, or like the bank. Like we couldn't, when the bank was robbed and Kent County brought in their specific team of. Oh, okay. Like, we
Yeah.
could not have done that in-house. Like, we just couldn't have. So, I really think it continues to be a better bang for our buck.
Yes, I agree.
Next, we have our fire department. Pretty minimal increase here, although like you mentioned, the cost of everything is increasing. Supplies and treatment chemicals, we're seeing increases every year, but, overall, we're trying to be conscious of what we're spending and where and we're trying to stay within our budget. So pretty regular operations at the fire department. Next we have street lighting. We budget 45,000. We try to consumers' energy to, the more they change to the LED light bulbs, the cheaper these bills will be. So, they just worked with us not too long ago down by, Skinner Field, that parking lot there. Anything that they could come in and change, we requested, they came in and changed them. We, changed some of the bulbs in the park area. But anything that's consumers' energy that we can get them here and they can get LED bulbs in here will decrease our bill, so we keep on them. Next, we have the cemetery. So. And a little bit of benefits and the equipment rental, and our cemetery looks fabulous, I think. It's a large area to keep maintained and work.
Work there.
Not enough.
Two of our DPW staff are mowing almost every week continuously, because by the time they finish, they start again and,
Trim like every,
with the certain machines in certain areas because of the headstones and
trim like, it's like all hands on deck just
For
before,
holidays,
I would say just before Memorial Day. And
blowing leaves, mowing grass, string trimming.
do that one more time in like.
Summer though, yeah.
Mm,
I want to say it's the beginning of, I was going to say beginning of August, middle of August. I could be wrong. But maybe it's the end of August heading in for Labor Day. Maybe that's what I'm thinking, but there's a, when he's talking about number of people, there's like all hands on deck, go make it look nice for.
Memorial Day for sure. I know that one. That's the first one.
Cause I know that was a thing. That was a thing.
Yeah, usually they do something for Labor Day.
That was a thing.
I guess that was just something, I was a little, when I saw that wages, full-time employees there, that's DPW staff and the time that they put in there. Okay, thank you.
Planning department, current year and next year, a little increase there. We did start our master plan process. So we have 25,000 budgeted this year. Probably won't spend all of that by June 30th. So we put another 25,000 in, next year. The whole process, will take anywhere from 12 to 18 months. So it's gonna hit 2 fiscal years. Whatever we don't spend this year, we'll just go back to general fund balance. So. Important piece that I'm glad we're updating our master plan.
Especially in a world where we're growing so fast.
Yep.
Cause it'll need to be updated in like another 24 months.
I mean,
Seriously,
it does kind of feel that way.
yeah.
When you look at the 425 and the, yeah.
Next, we have our code enforcement department. Not much benefits because she's not full-time, but a good chunk of legal fees. We have one area of town that are not very cooperative, maybe I'll say, and we need to enforce the rules, and requires us to go to court, so it is on our community to look nice, and that's what's required.
Some of it's not even just look nice, it's to be safe.
Yeah,
I mean,
true.
there's a point at which if you don't say this is what it's gotta be, and they don't, you kind of have to.
Yep. Next, we have community promotions. So this is where we're able to help give a little bit of money to some of the events that happen in town. The concerts at the amphitheater, our Halloween event, the bike race, Red Flannel Festival. All of those are back in the budget again this year. And a little bit for, I didn't realize that the DDA, the chamber and the city split the cost of the streetlights, a third, a third and a third. So.
For Christmas, you mean?
Yeah.
Or winter, whatever.
Yep. So pretty flat budget there, same as current year.
What's that about?
You wanna hear about it?
Butterfly still. You are.
Next, we have parks. Some exciting stuff going on here. 17 North Main Street, we've got 295,000 in the current fiscal year budget. We did budget 100,000 in the new fiscal year. Again, it's gonna hit 2 fiscal years. So wherever the money falls, we won't spend more than our budget, but it's gonna hit 2 fiscal years. Bids are out right now. They're due at the beginning of April. So hopefully at your April council meeting, you will award that bid to a contractor. And then that work should begin on or around May 1st. Once they start, they have a contractor has 120 days to finish the project. So that will be a really nice summer project downtown. Correct. Yeah. Yep.
It'd be fabulous.
And then there's 200,000 for the Heart of Cedar Springs. That's the trust fund grant. I think that will hit 2 fiscal years as well. 25, 25, 26. So wherever the expenses fall on that one. Exciting there. Last department we have is our debt service. This is our annual payment to the Kent County Drain Commission. For the drain that was put in, I believe, gosh, has it been 4 years now? 15-year assessment, so.
That was, yeah,
It-
the 100-year-old drain.
Yeah.
Did that go through Redbird?
Yes.
Went through 4 businesses.
Yeah, I was like,
And
right through.
under Main Street.
Out of the fire station.
Yeah.
Once
Yeah.
upon a time, it kept the beer cool. There.
Yum.
There was a low station, they could set it in there and help keep the beer cool.
That,
Not that I know personally. Okay.
lastly, we have our transfers out. So this, when we have general obligation bond payments, the general fund transfers the money to the general obligation bond fund. So, Emily will go through those 3 bonds that we have. Our Act 425 payment. Most of that goes to Solon Township, but a little bit goes to Nelson Township. We have properties within our jurisdiction from both of those townships. And then we transfer 50,000 annually to the equipment fund because the rates just aren't enough in the equipment fund to keep our equipment maintained and in working condition. So general fund helps out a little bit there. And I'm gonna be quiet now and let Emily take over.
Turn it on, I think.
I think I can hear you.
Pictures.
All right, can you hear me? All right. So I'm gonna go through the remaining funds. So I'll pick up here at the Perpetual Care Fund. The revenues in this fund are generated from the sale of lots within the cemetery. There's also some interest earned, which in turn is, you'll see on here that, let's see the interest. Yeah, the interest to the general fund, it goes to the general fund for the maintenance of the cemetery. So, really it's just the sale of the lots and it goes into the fund balance. So you'll see, noted on here, the current fund balance for, the cemetery trust fund is close to 250,000. So not a whole lot going on in this fund. Pretty, I mean, same thing as last year, just a little bit more interest.
Very many lots left that can be sold.
Becca, that, maybe you can answer that?
There are section 4 5
older portions of the cemetery are almost nearly full, if not full. There's quite a few left in for.
Okay. Is there a way to expand into new sections if?
Usually, yep, I know that 4 and 5 was an expansion on the former.
Right.
version, So yeah, I do believe mine is on as well, but, I do believe that there's.
Just wondering.
All right, next we've got the major and local street funds. This fund receives most of its revenue from the gas and weight tax from the sale of fuel. So we get 19 cents per gallon to the city. And this goes all into the roads. Most of it's received by the major streets, just because heavier traffic and more trucks driving on them require, more to be invested in them. No, they need a thicker pavement compared to, the local streets don't need, as much pavement there just because they don't see that traffic. And so this is what it comes through as the Act 51 revenue. So we receive that on a monthly basis. So two big projects coming up this next fiscal year that we budgeted for. So in the major streets, we have 5th Street, and we're looking to do from Cherry to Pine, redo 5th Street there. And then if there's money available, then we would also look at doing Pine Street to the wastewater treatment plant on 5th Street. Yeah, right.
From Main Street to the White Pine Trail.
Okay. Oh yeah, Main Street to
Pine.
the White Pine.
Main Street to the White Pine Trail, just that little,
Sure. Yes.
End of it. Okay, gotcha.
There, so. And then in the local streets, we're looking to redo Ash Street from First to Park. And this is gonna be a pretty big project because it's not just the street paving, it's also water, sewer, and storm sewer. So as we go through the next, several funds, we'll see Ash Street come up a lot just because it impacts more than just this fund, Yep. So it'll be a big investment there. So looking at the major street fund first, Major Street Fund receives 75% of the Act 51 revenue. So you'll see that in there for 345,000 that we're expecting to get for the next year, which that is up a little bit from the current year, what we have budgeted. That's really the most of the revenue there. There's some other, smaller items, but most of it's the
There's just more money coming in from the taxes, from the gas taxes.
the state puts out a 3-year projection. That's where we get our budget number from.
Is that number just gone up, or did the state increase the percentage, or?
Administration is putting more money in this pot to fix roads. Yep.
Driving by gas.
I think it's the administration.
So with that, we are also looking to potentially take some funds from the fund balance. You'll see about 152,000 there. But just to give some perspective, we do have about 650,000 in fund balance. And what we're proposing is a lot less than we were proposing for this current year, just because we had Main Street in here. So expenses have actually come down from what our current year budget is for major streets. So looking at the expense side of this, we've got different departments within the major street funds. So we've got reconstruction, maintenance, traffic, winter maintenance. I think I'm cutting out here. Winter maintenance and administration. So the big things to point out here is, like I had already mentioned, 5th Street from Pine to Cherry, and then also Pine Street from Main to the wastewater to the White Pine Trail. In there, you'll see those line items. There's 50,000 and another 250,000. So there's about 300,000 there, allocated towards, those major street projects. And then we also have, in here, if you look towards the very bottom of the expenses, we can transfer out 25% of what is received in the major street fund to local streets if we choose to. So we do have $50,000 allocated here to go to the local street fund. if we need it. So it can stay here, or, you know, we can choose to transfer up to 25%. So that is factored in there. And then there's a transfer out, 18,000 approximately. And that is 35% of the 2007 capital improvement bond. The other portion of that comes from, the general fund. So overall, we're looking at a decrease in overall expenses for the major street fund, compared to the, previous year. Okay. Any questions on major street fund? All right, then we'll move on to the local street fund. So this would be the remaining 25% of the Act 51 revenue that is allocated, to local streets. Again, here we're also looking to, potentially take some money from fund balance if needed. We have budgeted, about 129,000. If we use all, you know, if all the expenses pan out, that we're anticipating. But we do have 350,000 in fund balance available. This is where Ash Street comes in. So we got a lot of expenses here for Ash Street that we're, going to be redoing. So there's, some funds allocated for the storm sewer and also the paving of Ash Street. So 200,000 plus there. That's really the main thing, going on in the local streets for this next year. But overall, we are decreased, from the current year budget, when you look at the overall expenses. So that is, less than, where we're currently at. So we did have some street projects, for the current year, and we're just going to continue to do those projects, as we're able to.
We have any plans to paint curbs and say like the bump outs and things like that that make them more visible to?
Tanya, correct me if I'm wrong, the Main Street project isn't technically completed yet. Winter came too early last fall, so the contractor will be back at some point this spring when it's warm enough to put paint down on surface and allow it to stay.
Correct. So like the roads, for instance, the crosswalks and stuff, when we plowed this year, it really tore all that paint off from there. So they're gonna have to come back and fix all that.
And the bump outs, will they be painted to be more visible?
Not unless we're told to paint them.
Just wondering, people seem to think they're hard to see. You know, that if
Oh.
they aren't real familiar with Main Street, but I guess that's up to the powers that be.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard anything about painting them. So I think if we were to do something like that, we would have to paint quite a bit. I mean, like down the curb lines and everything yet too. So unless we're told to do that by somebody, I don't think we have it in the plans to do it.
Okay, I was just wondering.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything on it, so.
I haven't either.
So the next fund is the rubbish collection fund. So this, covers mostly the, spring brush pickup and the fall leaf pickup. So this is funded, by a millage that is levied, which is currently 0.5 mils, and that's what we're proposing to keep it at. So that revenue is allocated then to the expenses shown here. Pretty similar to the current year budget, no major changes there. It looks like, you know, based on what we're anticipating, there could be some extra to add to the fund balance, but it's also dependent on the year too. So we might have to, use more of the expenses than what we have allocated in here. So that gives us some extra cushion, if we need to, use some additional funds, depending on the year and depending on how much there is for leaf pickup and brush pickup. So it's just hard to forecast that. So yeah, there is a little bit of an increase there. But yeah, like I said, we are anticipating to be able to put some in fund balance. And then the next area is the downtown development fund. So for the revenue, you can see here there's 3 different line items for captured taxes. Those total 71,000 in captured tax revenue, which is quite a bit higher than what it has been previously, which is about a 25% increase in funding from what we have budgeted for the current year. We are still looking to potentially take from fund balance about 34,000 of the 44,000 in fund balance, but there's a lot going on this year. So we've got the parking lot, 74 North Second Street behind the brewery there that we're going to be paving, and that will be partially the city, which the city will pick up, well, I guess most of it, 61,000, but 20,000 will come from the DDA. And then also the DDA has committed to contributing 30,000 of funds to the Pocket Park, as well as another item, which is a new item, this facade and sign improvement grant program. So this will be the first year doing that. And that will be some facade improvements to Laura Ensley's building, Ensley Real Estate, new awnings. So that'll be the first of, hopefully more projects for that. So yeah, expenses have gone up here, but got more funding and some projects that'll be good for the future. And next we have the library fund. There's not going to be a whole lot to say on this tonight. We do not have their proposed budget currently. That's still in the works. They have a board meeting on Monday, so they are finishing that up, and they should have it after that board meeting on Monday. So we will plan on sharing that at the April meeting. And yeah, so more to come on that.
Yeah. Did interview for a director and made an offer. We haven't.
Did they do the offer?
we-
Excellent.
We haven't heard if the person took it.
Right.
And then next up, we've got our general obligation debt fund. We've got 3 bond payments left. So the first is the 2007 capital improvement bond. This is the bond that's paid from the general fund at 65% of the amount from the general fund, and then 35% from the major street fund. And these bonds are close to paying off. They'll be paid off in 2027, so a couple years left on that. The fire station bond, that is paid by the fire station millage. And like Darla had mentioned earlier, we are looking to levy 1.9999 mills to cover that payment. So that'll be fully covered by that millage. And then the other bond we have is for the West Street Utility Extension Project, and that's paid by the general fund. Revenues and expenses there. We got the transfers in from the funds that are paying for the 2007 capital improvement bond and the West Street utility extension, and then the millage from the fire station to cover that payment. So it's whatever comes in goes out. So it's a break even, nothing. You're there. So.
Well, the capital improvement bonds, we pay for those out of the general fund dollars, like the council levied those. It didn't go out to a vote to be assessed against taxes directly. So in theory, when that falls off, that frees up some general fund dollars that.
Yep.
Capital improvement. Just say it. Yep.
Our sewer fund. So this is the fund that covers our wastewater collection system as well as the treatment plant. So the revenues come from the utility rates that we charge. And per our ordinance, we can raise that rate by 2% or the rate of inflation based on the CPI for all urban consumers in the Midwest, which that's 2.7%. So that's what we are proposing in this budget is a 2.7% raise on those rates. So if we look at the revenues, you'll see that is reflected in the ready to serve fee as well as the sewer billings. the 2.7% increase there. We're also potentially looking to use some money from the fund balance there. We do have 2.5 million in fund balance available for the sewer fund. We may not need to take that much or may not need to take any. It just kind of depends, but it's there if we need it. Again, you'll see Ash Street on here, so that's a big expense for the sewer fund. That's 250,000 that we have allocated for the sewer fund towards that project. And then if you look underneath the sewage treatment plant, there is also some capital expenses there, 150,000. Most of that will be used to replace the control panel at the wastewater treatment plant, which that's the one that's there is currently the original one, which is about 30 years old. So that definitely needs to be replaced. So that's on the top of the list for. So yeah, so some increase there, not a lot, about 6% increase in overall expenses. You'll see on that.
This is for the water testing wells for Eagle come out of the water fund, or does that come out of fund?
Wells?
When Eagle had us test.
When Eagle had us put in wells to test, the wells to nowhere,
Okay.
do those come out of the water fund or do they come out of the general? Does the expense for that?
That initial 200,000 came out of the sewer fund.
And then I know we got some money from the state from,
3,000 grant dollars, which that's what we're spending now to continue testing all over. Fund.
because I know that money that goes into the sewer fund or water fund in general has to be used for the water fund. We can take general fund dollars and put them in, but we cannot take money out of the water fund to put into anything else.
Yep.
Trying to figure out exactly. Thank you for clarifying.
The new well site.
Okay.
Next, we have the water fund, and this we are also proposing the 2.7% increase, keep it the same as the sewer billings. So the big thing right now with the water fund is the new well site, and that should be up and running by the fall of 2024. So they're working heavy on that right now. So that'll be good to have that done, much needed.
Too soon.
Really not. So you'll see on the revenue side of it, that 2.7% increase on the rate is mostly stable. Else major there, we are potentially looking to take some out of fund balance if needed. We also have the Ash Street project that's coming out of the water fund.
Ever had a year where we didn't have to take money out of the fund out of general fund to support the water fund? Like, has that ever been?
We've never transferred money from the general fund to either water or sewer. Mm-hmm.
I swear that's been a.
In the past, it was a big problem. Yeah. In our
Ducks in a
amount
row
up
again.
there.
Good.
Try and remember.
There was the USDA grant, the like $3 million grant that we had for the upgrades. Rural water bond. And I think that put us over because we kept like pulling little bits to
Yep.
try to fix this thing and solve that problem and.
Thad kind of got on that about getting that fixed.
Yes.
Payments in both water and sewer. And they'll be there till 2055 is the current, unless we bond for more and extend that out.
And our our USDA. I remember like it was a thing when but we were not keeping the entire water system, for lack of a better term, afloat without that. Like it was, yeah, we didn't have enough money budgeted going in to maintain it. And as we expanded, it was literally like sinking. So, okay, yes, sorry, you solved that in my brain.
So outside of the Ash Street project, so that's allocated, at $210,000 for the expenses there, from the water fund. We also need to replace our meter reading system. And so that's gonna be about $20,000 there, and then plus there might be some additional expenses for training and gotta get a tablet to do that. The, system that we're using right now is no longer gonna be supported, so we have to make the change whether we want to or not. It's coming.
Just. Okay.
We did.
We're still,
For the,
I want to hope.
and we used to have a person used to have to go around and literally read the meters. Like walk the entire once a month and read the meters. And now we can scan, but
yes, we are still putting away, the usual $7,000 for the meter replacement. When it does come time to replace meters, we'll have that funding available. We also have expenses for the new well. Part of that is going to be in the current fiscal year. Well, I shouldn't say it is. We haven't got billed for that yet, but it's planned, part of it's planned to be in the current fiscal year, but it'll probably spill over into the next budget year. So, but it's significantly less in the next fiscal year. So we have about 200,000 allocated there. So hopefully we'll be able to pick up most of that expense in the current year budget. Overall, we're looking at a decrease, about 15% decrease in overall expense. And the biggest reason for the decrease is just the amount of funds needed for the new well in the next fiscal year versus the current year. So definitely a big expense, but
And if I could, basically, we're still pulling from the same aquifer with a new well. General direction. What do they anticipate is the lifetime of that particular area to draw from? Do you know?
Good question, Tanya. Do you know the answer to that?
Unfortunately, I do not.
Sorry, I asked. So, I mean, we've moved the well location, but it's still coming from a certain feed point, leads off into Nelson and stuff. So, I was just curious as to what are the options if it's ever been studied, so.
We'll find that out and bring it back in April, right, Tanya?
Yes, definitely will.
Thank you.
all right. And then the next page here, this is a rate analysis for increasing the rates for water and sewer. Just kind of shows what the impact would be from the customer's perspective. So for the first tier example, a customer that uses 1,000 gallons per month that currently would pay $49.04 for this. With the rate increase at 2.7%, it would bring it to $50.36. So just over $1 increase there for a customer that uses the 1,000 gallons. And then for on the other end of it, if they use 5,000 gallons, their bill currently would be about $101.68. And with the 2.7% increase that we're looking at, that would bring it to $104.43. So a couple dollars difference, nothing too crazy there.
Be both sewer water on their bill or just the water?
Sewer and water.
We have the equipment fund. The equipment fund receives funds from the rental of equipment. So an example would be like mowing the cemetery, like we talked about. That's very time consuming in the summer months. And so the cemetery department would pay for the equipment and the time that the equipment is used for that. So that is where a good portion of the revenue comes from for the equipment fund. And then also there's some funding from the general fund, $50,000 that we have transferred to be able to maintain the equipment there. And on the expense side of it, we've got couple things to note. The new backhoe loader cat lease, that's about $20,000 per year. So you'll see that in there. And then the other item as far as equipment purchases, looks like a brush grapple, that would be $5,000 for a brush pickup. So overall, there is going to be an increase in expenses, about a 23% increase there. But otherwise, nothing too major going on for the equipment fund. Depends on any of the funds that we went over or. All right, well, that kind of, yeah. No, you're fine.
My mind how to word it, I'm looking at the numbers, for the whole water fund and everything matches up. Why, compared to neighboring cities, why do we pay so much more in water? I pay a lot of money every month just as a single guy for water. So what in this fund is driving these prices so high that taxpayers have to pay?
It's not higher than other cities.
Got population, not just neighboring cities. Our system in total it covers so many customers where maybe a neighboring township overall system isn't similar to ours. There's several factors that goes into determining the rate for water and sewer. Like we were talking earlier, because we have bond payments from USDA, so we borrowed money from them. They're gonna come in and say, if you're not at this minimum level, they make us be at that minimum level. So we try to do the projections, internally every year.
Don't think that we did a breakdown of other.
City, our population, we are on the low end of the rates.
For people with actual water systems. I mean, if you're talking about a township that doesn't have a water and sewer system, that have independent wells and septic systems, sure, that's gonna be less money. Well, until it fails, or until it pulls PFAS, or until it pulls whatever, and then they gotta replace the whole thing or put a $5,000 filter system in. But
That we did last year,
this somewhere, because we saw it.
for the April meeting and share it. Yeah.
Big cities like Grand Rapids. Our water bill per person, per household, per gallon is not.
Yeah, let's get that chart out because that's very informative.
Do the mobile home parks have, is their ready to serve different than than the other people in the city?
A master meter that they pay the city for, then they distribute the water internally in the park on their own system scale, however they determine how much each trailer pays. We have no part of that.
The same thing.
The apartment?
The apartment, sorry, red flannel.
Yes, they have, it's the same setup there. They have one big master meter and then they bill however they want from there.
Gotcha. Maybe my bill is just extremely. way
Well, and that's what's
less
it,
else is here
and that's
just
what,
for that reason.
well, and that's what that's on, on the Cedar Springs Informed and stuff too. That comes on and they ask those questions.
Mhm.
And there were a couple questions about different areas charging more for their readiness to serve. So make sure you're checking all that stuff. And sometimes that is, way overboard. I think when I lived in the mobile home park, it was way over the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the mobile home park. That's
Right.
not the city.
That's what I'm explaining to him. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've just had a lot of people ask me, about water rates, you
Yeah.
know, that live in the city and in the mobile home park. I mean, that's probably the number one question I've been asked, you know, since November.
This is
It's
the
always
number
good
one
to have an
question we all
answer,
get.
isn't
Right, so I'm asking on behalf of them, you know, so.
We've all gone through it.
And-
I've said the same thing too, so it's just like.
And-
Very informative.
And it was one of the things when we were really dealing with trying to get the upgrades, well, before we did the $3 million, like, we didn't want to increase water rates, but at the same time, we literally were losing the ability to keep our plant functioning. And as much as it seems like it's just water, it's not just water. It's water that has to come out of a pump. It has to be tested. It has to be treated. It has to be piped. It has to be pressurized. It has to go away when you flush and be treated and tested. And it's not a,
It's
Not-
not just water.
yeah, it's
For
not,
sure.
it's not go take a bucket out of the creek. And with all of the issues that have happened in this recent thing with PFAS and Wolverine and with the federal government with the fire retardant in the, it's just, this is not a thing we want to mess with. I mean, you don't want to. I'm from Flint.
Just out of curiosity, for those developments, it would be interesting to know what, if anything, they charge additional,
They do.
simply because their water lines and so forth in there have to be maintained also. And, or should be maintained also. So they may be tacking some things on as far as invoicing the customer
Right.
to try to cover their expenses there.
So from what I understand, the city up to the main meter is responsible. From that point on, these parks are
Mhm,
responsible.
mhm.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
It's the same with the park on Northland Drive.
They
Yes,
Northland Estates.
yes,
Yep.
to tell you, if you ask what that total amount is, it's. Well, but I mean, you can say like, this is what I need to know. Like, I mean, you could FOIA it if you had to, but you have an absolute right to know what is the cost that's coming from the city. Like, what is the city billing the park overall? And if you know how many people, you can divide it up and you can see what the additional cost is. I mean, that shouldn't be secret information.
Let's move on from water. Are there any other questions? Are we done? What, was that the last one? I'm sorry. I want to make sure before I go on. But do we have any other questions for them? Did you guys think of anything else while you were sitting here?
Yes. I have a question. Is there enough money to finish up the antique fire truck? Get off that this year. It's time.
It's been like a decade, not
Yes.
to be like, I mean, it really has.
Long.
Well,
Mhm.
hopefully the person that has it is not gonna be the one doing it.
We have all kinds of. Is there money for it? Do we need to have a,
There's money that was collected when we originally had the process going through.
Right.
Up to this point, Carl, has been
right?
very on it. A lot of the stuff he's actually been funding himself.
Yes.
I'm not arguing with that fact.
Right.
Do we need to kick some money in to make it?
It has been
I don't
offered.
think so.
Well, if necessary. Okay, that's all I need to know.
Do you have any communications? All right.
Say something.
Yeah, we were gonna do you want to say something before the comments or do you want
No, it's about.
to? Okay, go ahead.
stuff.
Go ahead.
I don't know if, anyone noticed, but I frequent the, Redbird. And they put the new signs up for the, social district. The one that's just outside of Loom right there. Sign going south says, welcome to the social district. Where it should say entering social district, it should say exiting. Because they're supposed to be leaving the district once they passed the loom, because it says entering on both sides. So I just wanted to, I noticed that, so I just want to make a note of, let someone know. Enter, enter.
I thought we voted to have it open till 11, social district, but the signs say 10 o'clock. I've checked it several times, so maybe we'll have
I
to.
thought it was 11.
I thought it was
I'm pretty
11.
sure it was 11.
I know 11 was discussed.
I know 11 was discussed for the marijuana stores, but I didn't know it was for, I don't remember the social district thing person, I just don't.
We'll check the minutes and if those need to be corrected, we'll get them corrected.
That would be a shame. They're nice signs. Love them.
Any comments that you wanted to make at this time?
Anything else, Ms. Landon, that? By the way, thank you.
Good job.
Yes.
Yeah.
Learn with.
You get to stay here forever.
So yeah, we'll bring this back next month and we'll, communicate any changes that come up between now and then. And then we'll also have the library, budget included, as well as that chart, for the comparison of, water and utility rates. Yep.
Mentioning the library. I had heard in a roundabout way that there's some confusion as to what all the library board has control of. I don't know the whole details because it was just kind of. Thinking they controlled everything from Main Street through back to the trail. As far as the property and stuff. I don't know what it is.
I have a map in my office that the original lease that is still good today is not just the footprint of the building. It is quite a bit of that park area. I don't think it goes all the way to the White Pine Trail, but
What, just overhearing, and, the reason being is it was part of the discussion of you have control if part with an amphitheater. It was kind of tossed at me, but not hearing all of it, and I couldn't comment to it. I wouldn't comment to it because I just didn't know. So, I would like stuff was gonna be under their control, where the kids' play area was going to be, and things of that nature. So I would like to see it if possible, okay? That's something to be brought to us where we could,
You have gotten the grant if that belonged to the library.
Well, it belonged to, anyways, we're leasing, so it's city property. It's, whether we're leasing it or not, but it just depends on if they can use it, right? Isn't it more of a use thing?
Get that to them. There's money in there for flowers.
that part I don't know. They were, it was like booking the use of the library's meeting room. They do that. Okay. Do they have control of any of the other property out there as far as use and so on and so forth? So I would be interested in seeing that if I could, please. And it's not a process, but
at City Hall.
But if that's the case, we might have to change the wording maybe in the lease.
But I think in the past, when Michael and I updated the lease this was with Donna. No, this was with Cammie. We expanded it so that they could use it. Like they could use the amphitheater for a library
Library.
thing without like having to pay.
Right.
But they don't control they would have to say, we want it on this date. But they didn't control the scheduling or collect the funding or provide the maintenance.
Yeah, they don't have to.
are you saying they could say they want it on that date, or they're requesting for it depending on what the scheduling is here at the city hall,
And
so.
the time they schedule it ahead with City Hall. Like for the summer reading program, they could say, we want it for the summer reading program on this time, and it would go onto the schedule for City Hall. But we wouldn't charge them.
They could not override anything else that was being used at a given time that has been approved of here. And that's kind of what that was what I couldn't address, because I didn't know. So I don't know exactly what all the agreement has been given to them, and I'd like to see it.
Or contracts, so it has to be revised, yeah. Yeah, they're working on that.
Okay, council comments. Mrs. Conley.
Emily, you're a rock star. And thank you. That was fabulous. And you had some big shoes to fill. So and I've said this before, I've done a lot of budgets with a lot of between the school and the library, and not our first finance director. Darla did the best budget I've ever, and you can see her fingerprints all over, and you are equally doing that in the pictures and the charts and it's just very readable, and budgets are a reflection of our values. You nailed it. So thank you.
Mr. Gross.
I would agree.
We're fortunate to have found you. You're fortunate to have a mentor that you have. Because it does resemble those budgets also. It's a good one to carry through on. And, between the two of you, you've done a super job. And clear, it's concise, although large, which it's always going to be. So, appreciate it.
Mr. Marvel.
I totally agree too. I'm not the smartest person in the world, but this was pretty easy to understand. You guys broke it down wonderfully. So thank you. Thank you. And I had a lot of questions coming in. You guys answered them as you were presenting. So it was clear, as concise. And that's a lot, but thank you. Thank you both.
Mrs. Powell.
Thank you very much. And I gotta agree with everything that everybody said here. And, this is, I just tell you how happy I am to see that our city is solvent and we're paying for our sewer water, and the things that we need to do for the city are getting done. And for the most part, we can afford it. And in our position, if we need a loan for some kind of, if our water system had a huge failure, we're in a position to get a loan. And if we didn't do what we do now, we couldn't get loans. If we were failing in our budgets and not watching our P's and Q's, we couldn't get loans to repair major damages. So this is what we have to have, and I love it.
Same. Great job. That's something I come into and I'm bummed I have to be here because it's always good. So I appreciate the time. I know it's a lot of work, and thank you for that.
Yes, thanks a lot. Appreciate it. When I first started on the council, I was so nervous about the budget. I was like, and Darla got up and started talking about it. And every time I asked a question, she had an answer, and it was easy for me to understand. And that's how you both made this, this budget meeting flowed clearly. We don't even have that many questions, which that's a good sign, so that's what makes it wonderful to have the staff that we have, and you guys both did well. Thank you. Did you have anything, Fire Chief? Did you have anything? Okay. I think then we are dismissed at 7:24. Anything new on the road?